All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Hello.
Hi, Andrea. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can hear you, Caroline.
All right, perfect. So, welcome to our next webinar this year. I'm your host, Caroline, and we have another very interesting topic to present for you today. The topic is how to deal with the two-week wait for the embryo transfer. Our special guest is Andrea Trigo. You can see her already. She's a TEDx speaker, award winner, nurse, specialist, and coach. And she's here today to tell you how to cope with your emotion stress during the two-week wait. All right. And let me remind you how it all works. We'll start with Andrea's presentation. It will take approximately 20 to 30 minutes, and then our Q&A session will follow. Remember to type in all of your questions, and after the presentation, they will be answered one by Andrea. And just remember also that this live event is being recorded and will be available online tomorrow. You can see the link to the webinar as well in the chat section. And of course, that means that if you for somehow will lose the connection, etc., you are able to watch it again tomorrow. I guess we can start. Andrea, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So my name is Andrea, and first of all, I would like to thank Egg Donation Friends for having invited me here today to speak to you about such an important topic. And second of all, I would like to thank you all for having registered for this webinar, because you could be doing something completely different and you have chosen to be here today in front of your computers or phones listening to this webinar. So thank you for taking the time of being here today. And we'll be talking about embryo transfer and how to cope with the 2-week wait. And I understand that it may seem a bit challenging to maybe even consider that we can maybe feel less anxious or less stressed during the 2-week wait, but it is possible. So I assure you that after this short webinar, you will feel that you have really practical strategies to cope with such a challenging time during your fertility journey. So let me say that to start with, would it be okay if I introduced myself and why I am here? I assume you said yes in front of your computers. So my name is Andrea, and I was diagnosed with infertility myself when I was very young, at the age of 17, and it triggered a lot of emotions inside me. And eventually I was able to cope with the roller coaster of emotions, and I've made my life mission to help other people who are going through the same. I've been a registered nurse for over 13 years, and I qualified as a neurolinguistic programming coach just because I feel that infertility is a trauma, and NLP teaches us specific techniques that we can use to help patients cope with the trauma, cope with the emotions, and help them make decisions that are so important during this journey. I've also done my TEDx. It has been a year now, and I've written a few books. So I feel that my journey as a patient and my journey as a nurse have brought me here today, and I hope that I have some useful techniques that you can apply straight away today or tomorrow as soon as you feel you need to use them. So usually we talk about infertility as being a roller coaster of emotions. And I bet all of you have felt one of these, any of these feelings that are showing up on the screen, either the anxiety, the anger, the frustration, the worry, the fear, the disappointment. And all of these feelings are absolutely normal. So no matter what you are feeling right now, or no matter what you feel during the 2-week wait, I want you to know that those feelings are absolutely normal. I usually say that an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is completely normal. So don't blame yourself and don't be sad for whatever it is that you are feeling. However, this roller coaster and this journey is sometimes something that we go through in secrecy, because there is still a lot of stigma associated, and we feel that we can't share that with others. So a lot of times when people ask us, "Are you okay?" and we say, "I'm fine," when in the back of our mind we're going through all of these emotions, especially in the 2-week wait. There are so many emotions: the expectation, the fear, the anxiety. So how can we cope with either work or with social interactions during such an important time? So above all, I would say that my work as a fertility nurse and coach is helping patients deal with emotional distress. Emotions take around 80% of the work, because if you're able to manage your emotions, then you are able to carry on with treatment so you can have the family of your dreams. However, if you are not able to manage your emotions, then that is actually the number one reason for people to stop fertility treatment. So I've made it very clear in my head that emotions are at the base of everything. If you are okay, then you are okay to make decisions. You are okay to have the treatment that you need to have the family that you want to have. So today, a lot of the strategies that we'll talk about are actually emotional strategies. Let's just go to the next slide. And I'd like to start by telling you, why do we feel the way we do? Because a lot of times we feel that we have an emotion that is triggered by an event in our lives, and we feel that not only we cannot control that emotion, but we don't know where it came from and that we can't change it. So as we grow up, we have family, our parents, family and friends, teachers, and all those people around us who we value and trust. They have their own values and beliefs of how we should be educated, of how we should live life, of how we should do things. So all these values and beliefs of the people that we value and trust very quickly turn out to be our own values and beliefs. And we believe, if these values and beliefs have worked for these people that we value and trust so much, then I can easily adopt them as my own. And as we grow up and go through life, these values and beliefs turn out to be the lenses with which we see the world. So when something happens to me, I have this unique representation of what is happening. And that triggers a certain feeling. The way I feel triggers a certain action, and then I get certain results in my life. So when I understood this, I realized that actually the values and beliefs that I have are not my own. They're actually from my parents, my family, and I grew up in a very large family. So even though I wasn't trying to conceive when I was diagnosed at the age of 17, in the back of my mind, of course, I thought one day I will conceive, because I'm part of this big family, and that's just what is naturally in my future. That's what's going to happen. But of course, once I was faced with infertility, I understood that these values and beliefs were not really helping me cope with my challenges at the time. I felt that I wasn't enough. I felt that I didn't belong, and I questioned all sorts of things. So a lot of the work I did on myself was redesigning my own life and redesigning my own values and beliefs. So this roller coaster that we've been talking about actually has a proper medical name, and it's called the process of grief. So initially, when we are faced with a circumstance that we aren't expecting, we might feel the shock and the denial. Then we might feel the anger, or we might feel depressed, or then there's dialogue and bargaining, where we say, if I could just do anything, I would just do anything if I can just have this positive pregnancy test. The great thing about the process of grief is that we understand that it's a process and it's naturally and expected. The bad thing about the process of grief is that it's not linear like this PowerPoint shows. So we go back and forth, back and forth. And the 2-week wait is precisely one of those times when we go back and forth with these feelings and emotions. And again, I would like to highlight it to you that it's completely normal and expected. Okay, so don't blame yourself. I remember as well when I was initially diagnosed, there was that time, the time before and the time after I knew I had a problem. The time before, when I was a young woman, I was a sister, I was a doctor, and I was part of a big family. I was a friend, I was a student at the time, a girlfriend. I had an identity as someone who wanted to be healthy, and as any young 17-year-old, I wanted to grow and I wanted to change the world. That was who I am, who I was at the time. And then when there was this particular challenge of being diagnosed with infertility, all these roles and identities disappeared from my life. And 24/7, I was only focused on my fertility and what I could not have in my life. So my journey since then was rediscovering my new identity. Even though I was going through the challenges of a fertility journey, I had to find time in my life to still be a sister, to still be a daughter, to still be part of my family, to still be part of a group of friends, to still being healthy. So it was a journey of rediscovering myself and making sure that no matter what my fertility journey brings, there will be space in my identity and in my life for it. But everything in my life, everything else, also has a certain space. And I need to make space for those other roles that I want to have in my life, because that's what I want as an identity, and that's what I want to be healthy and for my own well-being. So what we're going to talk here today is about meeting your own needs. And here we have this pyramid where we talk about physiological needs, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. So having all these other roles in your life is about meeting all these needs that are so important. And so many times we forget that we get so focused into reaching our fertility goals that we completely forget all these other physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. All of these are so important. So today we're going to talk about practical strategies. And I was thinking about things that happen during the 2-week wait and how can we manage them? What strategies could I teach you for this particular time of your journey? So I was thinking that during the 2-week wait, there is the obsessing about pregnancy symptoms. Am I pregnant because I have these symptoms, or maybe I don't have any symptoms? Am I still pregnant? There's also the thinking about all the what ifs. What if it's positive? What if it's not positive? What am I going to do next? There's also some negative thoughts. It hasn't happened in the past, so I have the feeling this is not going to happen again, or my eggs weren't good quality enough. And then there's the fact that you might have too much time in your hands, so you might need to keep busy. And then there's the feeling that no one else understands what you're going through during these 2 weeks. So I have identified these as 5 important topics, and I'm going to give you particular strategies to cope with each one of them. Does that sound good? So, the number one, obsessing about pregnancy symptoms. As a nurse, I can assure you that there is no such thing as pregnancy symptoms, at least in that initial stage of 2 weeks. So you might end up with a positive pregnancy test and you've had no symptoms whatsoever. And sometimes you have symptoms and you end up with a positive pregnancy test. So you just never know. So that's something that doesn't exist. So the first strategy that we have here is scheduling time to obsess. And it might seem a bit odd, but if you schedule a time, let's say 15 minutes from 8 to 8:15, it's my time to obsess about these pregnancy symptoms. And it might be the time when you go on Instagram and you talk to your TTC crew and you say, look, I'm having these symptoms. How was it in your journey? I'm going crazy about this 2-week wait. So scheduling, at least you have 15 minutes where you think about it, or you might go and check the calendar, how many days you still have until you do your pregnancy test. So schedule time for you to actually obsess about this topic. The second strategy that I would like to teach you today is called the quick state change. So this is a really easy technique, but some of you might have heard about this technique, especially if you've seen some of my previous presentations, because I absolutely love this technique. So this technique is a triad. Usually we feel that we cannot control our emotions, but with this technique, I assure you that you will be able to change the way you feel about something. So let's say you are sitting in a coffee shop and you see someone who is sitting at a different table and you see that that person is sad. And even without talking to that person, you are able to see that that person is sad. And the reason why that happens is because when someone is sad, we assume a certain posture with our bodies. So let's say if I think about a time in my life when I was sad, I would say that my shoulders were down, my head was down, my muscles were tense, maybe I was crying. And what I also know about this time in my life is that I was focusing on something. Maybe I was focusing on the fact that I wasn't a parent yet. And then I was using certain language in my head, that tiny voice that sometimes is so unhelpful. So maybe I was saying, you are a complete failure. What are you doing with your life? So this is a triad. Every emotion is associated with a certain body posture. It's because focusing on something, and it's because we're using a certain language. The trick here is that if we change one of these 3 things in the triad, we are actually able to change the way we feel. So let's say if I'm sad, or if I'm anxious, or if I'm depressed, or if I have sort of negative thoughts coming through my mind, what I can do is change my posture. So I can think of a time in my life when I was super happy, super excited. As soon as I say, what was the time when I was the happiest? I'm changing my focus, and then my shoulders are back, my head is up, and I think about what words did I have in my head at that time. It might be, oh my God, this is amazing. I was having these amazing holidays, or I was achieving something at work and I was feeling, you finally did it. So for a quick state change, all you have to do is either change your body posture, change your focus, or change your language. And this is something that you can do if you are obsessing about pregnancy symptoms during the 2-week wait. Okay, just change the focus or change the language in your head during this week, or change the posture. Now, the other topic we have here is called thinking about the what ifs. So here are all the possible things that can happen or may not happen. Usually, the what ifs are things in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but they are still occupying time in our mind. So let's say the first strategy is called the body scan. Have you ever tried the body scan? So basically, it's a mindfulness technique. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes, and you can find it in a lot of websites. So you can find it in even on YouTube, for example. And the body scan takes you through your whole body, and it makes you relax several parts of your body. It's a way of bringing you back to the present moment. There are also amazing audio recordings with breathing exercises. You will notice that if you are stressed or anxious, your breathing tends to be quite fast or quite shallow. So these breathing exercises, they will prompt you to breathe in a different way, and that will change automatically the way you feel. Another exercise I like a lot to manage all the what ifs is meditation. So meditation is about noticing our thoughts, and I might be thinking, what if this doesn't work? So I'm noticing this thought, and I'm going to say to my head, to the voice in my head, thank you for sharing. Now you can go. And then you come back to the present moment. Meditation is about noticing. So it might be that, for example, this glass of wine or water, wine, no wine. This glass of water might be, I notice the shape of the glass, the size of the glass, the smell of the water, and then I taste it. And that's what mindfulness meditation is all about. It's about focusing on what is happening in the present moment. And again, there are lots of recordings about mindfulness meditation and how to include it in our lives. It just prevents us from thinking about the past that we can no longer change, or worry about the future that hasn't happened yet. So this is one of the most powerful things that we can do to manage all these what ifs that are going in our mind. Then the fourth strategy is called journaling or writing it down. What happens is if we are feeling a certain emotion, we are feeling it in a part of our brain called the amygdala. So this is the irrational, the emotional part in our brain. But as soon as we write down this emotion, so let's say I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling anxious. But as soon as I get a piece of paper and I write, I am feeling anxious, we are labeling this emotion. And as soon as we are labeling it, it moves from the part of our brain, which is the irrational amygdala, to the rational part of our brain, and our emotion reduces. So journaling and writing it down can be very good in terms of managing all these what ifs that can happen. Now, negative thoughts. Who here has had negative thoughts? Everyone. And you know what? We will always have them. There will always be a part of our brain that is going to think, oh my God, this is not going to work, especially if this journey has been going on for a long while. Then we may think it hasn't worked so far, so my experience is that it's not going to work. So one way of changing that, it's our strategy number 5, is with affirmations. So affirmations are a way of controlling these negative thoughts in our mind. In psychology, there is something that we call the self-fulfilling prophecy. This means that I have a thought in my mind, and it might be that my thought is, this is not going to work. What the self-fulfilling prophecy says is that because I have this negative thought, all my actions that I'm going to take, maybe unintentionally, are going to lead me to not having these results. So affirmations are a way of changing these negative thoughts. An affirmation might be every morning you are in front of the mirror in the bathroom and you say, my body is healthy and I am ready for this pregnancy. And you say it so frequently, so you say it every day at the same time repeatedly, that it becomes an internalized belief. And unintentionally, your body will take the actions to meet that belief. So that is a very, very powerful way of managing negative thoughts. Here, I have also included gratitude. There are a lot of research involving gratitude and how it changes the waves in our brain. The more we express gratitude, the more we see it around us. So usually I advise, and that's what I do for myself as well. I force myself to identify at least 2 or 3 things each day that I am grateful for. So let's say, for example, if you are even in a relationship, you don't have to write it down, but you turn to your partner at night and you say, today I was grateful for this, this, and this. And it might be, I'm grateful because you called me at lunchtime saying you missed me, or I'm grateful because you did the shopping and I didn't have to worry about, or I'm grateful because you brought me a glass of water. Whatever it is, you can, it's just expressing gratitude. Then we have here strategy number 6. This is a bit challenging one, but it's amazing and it works. So this is the technique of challenging our thoughts. So we're having negative thoughts and we're going to look for evidence that challenges these thoughts. So are you ready? I would say if you want to take a picture of the next slides or get a piece of paper, because this is very powerful. So basically, you need to create a table like this. And the table will have thought, emotion out of 10, the evidence that supports that thought, the evidence that refutes that thought, your conclusion and emotion. Okay, so you create this table. I've done it myself, and because we will always have negative thoughts. So once we put it on paper, we can do something about it and it improves straight away. So let's say my thought during this 2-week wait is that this embryo transfer is not going to work. And what happens? Oh, why didn't it? Why is it not? Caroline, do you know why it's not showing up?
Just a second, let me have a look.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi.
So,
Just a second. This particular slide, right?
yeah, so it has some boxes here that should disappear when I click.
All right. Just a second, let me try to upload it perhaps. Just one more second.
It's just better if we can see it. If not, I can say it as well, but if we can see it.
Well, if you could try and start describing it, I will try to fix it as soon as possible, okay? Let me see.
Okay. So let's say that I have this thought in my head where this embryo transfer is not going to work. And the emotion that is triggered in me is sadness or helplessness, whatever it is. And I'm going to write that emotion here. So let's say sadness. And I'm going to say the intensity of that emotion, being 10, the worst. Okay, so the highest level of intensity. So I can say that thinking that this embryo transfer is not going to work gives me a sadness of 10 out of 10. It's just terrible, and I can't even conceive having to go through this again. So this we do naturally, even without writing it down. This is what's happening in our bodies and minds. What we're going to do now is look for the evidence that supports this thought. Why do I think that this is not going to work, actually? So I'm going to write here, for example, I think this is not going to work because I'm not having any of those pregnancy symptoms, or I think it's not going to work because I've had a glass of wine the other day, or I think it's not to work because I've had 2 embryo transfers in the past and they didn't work. So these are the reasons why I'm thinking that it's not going to work. And again, we do this automatically in our heads. This bit is the one we don't do automatically, which is looking for the evidence that refutes that thought. So here, what evidence do I have that maybe this thought is not real? It's not going to happen. Well, actually, I have prepared myself better this time as opposed to the other 2 times when I've had an embryo transfer. So maybe this is going to work. Or I might say this embryo that was transferred was of better quality, or maybe they did it with a different strategy, with a different surgical technique. So maybe this is some evidence that makes me believe that this thought is not accurate. So we write all of this down, the evidence that refutes the thought. The conclusion is going to be a combination of both. So I might write something like that. Even though I've had 2 embryo transfers before and these haven't worked, and even though I'm not having any pregnancy symptoms, I have prepared differently, and these embryos are of better quality. So your conclusion will be merging both evidences. And then here we're going to look at the emotion. And once you have reached this conclusion, that initial emotion of sadness will no longer be that as extreme as it was in the beginning. It will no longer be that 10 out of 10 because you have put things into perspective. Now you can use this table in so many areas of your life. Maybe you're thinking you're not doing enough in your journey, or whatever it is that you're thinking, just write it down. Write down the emotion, write down the evidence that supports, the evidence that refutes, and then your conclusion. I assure you, it will make you feel better straight away. When I need to do one of these, it happens from time to time, I just keep it next to my bed and I look at it and I go to bed at night feeling much more relaxed because these negative thoughts in my head, they're just an annoying voice that sometimes shows up. Then there's also the fact that you might have a lot of free time during this 2-week wait. Some people prefer to carry on doing work. Some people prefer to take time off work. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, because there are people who avoid work and get pregnant, and there's people who go to work and get pregnant. So there's no right or wrong way of doing it. But if you do have a lot of free time, one way of coping with a 2-week wait is keeping busy. And it might be that during this time, you get a chance of engaging in activities that you usually don't have time of engaging. It might be doing something that gives you meaning. It might be something that gives you pleasure, maybe reading a book or going for a walk or going to the cinema if you haven't been in a while, or maybe having a massage. Whatever it is, something that keeps you busy and that gives you pleasure. Or you can try and focus on something that gives you that sense of accomplishment. I usually talk a lot about activities that give us a sense of accomplishment. We cannot underestimate how important these are. Something that is not related to fertility, but gives you the feeling that you are moving forward with your life. It might be a hobby that you do, or it might be work related, something that gives you the sense that you are moving forward. Then our strategy number 8 is about putting yourself first during this 2-week wait. This is so important. And no matter what emotions you are feeling, just notice them, don't fight them. It's absolutely okay not to be okay. And allow yourself to feel whatever you are feeling without judging. Remember, mindfulness, this emotion pops in my head, this thought pops in my head, and you say to your voice, thank you for sharing, and you just write down. Protecting your well-being and your mental health. If during this 2-week wait you don't want to be around people, don't be around people. If you want to meet a particular friend, meet that particular friend. If you want to spend a day completely watching TV and eating popcorn, do that. Do whatever you need to do to put yourself first and your well-being first. And then dealing with the last problem, which is no one understands. And you are absolutely right. No one understands unless they have been through it. That's absolutely correct. So what you need to do is find other people who have been through it, because they will understand. So here we're talking about getting unbiased professional support. It might be an NLP or CBT coach, it might be a counselor, it might be a psychologist. So these people will have the ability to give you some outside help with some practical strategies and techniques. It might be that these strategies help you manage your emotions. It might be that it has to do with managing difficult conversations, for example, with your partner or with friends or at work. Or it might be that these strategies involve making decisions about what happens if it's positive, decisions what happens if it's not positive. So getting professional help for these topics is really, really important. And these people who specialize in fertility support will be able to help you during this 2-week wait. And then finally, I usually say this is so important because professional support is not the only way of getting support, especially during the 2-week wait when, like we've said, no one else understands. It's really important to find your support network. It might be family, it might be friends, or it might be in social media. There's a lot of Facebook groups. There's a huge community on Instagram where you can be completely anonymous, create an anonymous name for yourself, and just find this gigantic crew of people who are going through it, people who are also in the 2-week wait, people who will listen to when you complain or when you are unsure or when you are anxious. So it's an amazing place to be. So there is not one way of getting support. If no one understands, there is several ways of getting support. So finding your own support network, either from any of these resources, will be so helpful. Then all of this is part of our enhanced fertility program. So if at any point you feel that you need one-to-one support with me as a coach for the 2-week wait, or for example, improving your lifestyle, improving your environmental factors, managing habits or managing emotions, then again, I'm very happy to help you with that. And Caroline, I think we have some questions I can see here.
For your presentation, for all the tips. I am sure many of our patients have found it very interesting and helpful. I do see we have some questions. Just one more thing when it comes to the presentation. Apologize. I was not able to fix it now, but we will be able to actually publish this this particular part, and everyone will be able to see it again. So I apologize for that. I wasn't able to do it now.
That's okay. I think people got the idea. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But in case, we will be able to show it to them. All right, and now let's move to the next part.
The questions.
As Andrea mentioned, yes, we have questions ready.
Okay, question.
Have a look at the first question from Michelle. Do you think it's beneficial to do pregnancy tests every day while on the 2-week wait to see if you have a chemical pregnancy? I've never done this and have had 5 implantations so far, sadly. 5 more embryos left in the freezer on my third cycle.
Okay, so definitely don't test every day. Actually, those pregnancy tests that we get from the pharmacy or you can get over the counter are not the most accurate tests. And it takes 2 weeks for the hormone to be in your urine. So there is no point testing because you might think it's a negative pregnancy test when it's actually positive. So there is no point testing, and our advice to patients is never do home tests during the 2-week wait. Absolutely wait for the 2 weeks. It's all about managing your anxiety so you can wait for those 2 weeks to pass so you can finally test. Now, the fact that you've had 5 implantation failures means that maybe something. I would say that the more you do, the more likely that is that it will be successful. That's what we know. Usually successful than the first cycle. That's what data shows everywhere in the world. So don't be disheartened that it may take a few tries for it to be successful. Okay, it means that in the beginning, your doctor is trying to understand how your body responds to all the medications, all the drugs, all the interventions. So the more you do, it's good that you have 5 more embryos left in the freezer for your third cycle. I would say if you want, I can have a chat with you free of charge over the phone. You can schedule it and we can see if there is anything that we can do in terms of lifestyle or in terms of environmental factors that could be affecting your implantation, and see if there's anything that you could do ahead of that third cycle to try and make it successful. But again, it will be your third cycle, and usually third cycles are more successful than the first and the second. So don't be disheartened. You are on the right track.
All right, perfect. Michelle for the question, and Andrea for answering. And let me have a look. I believe we have the next question from Michelle's partner. The 2-week wait, yes, is the most stressful part of the journey of IVF. On a male perspective, I have to say this is the most helpless I feel during the journey. On an emotional level, I am by my partner's side and I am toward our goal, but the physical side to what my girlfriend is going through leaves me feeling helpless and a bystander. Any advice you can give that could make a small difference in this difficult period?
I think the fact that you are open to being here on this webinar, the fact that you are open to talk about it already speaks so much about you as a partner. So I would say you're already doing more than most partners do. The fact that during this 2-week wait, what you can do potentially is just pamper her a bit more. Ask her what would she like to do that would give her pleasure, what would give her a sense of accomplishment. What can you do with her that keeps her busy, takes her mind off it, or maybe engage in those mindfulness recordings, in those breathing exercises if she's getting anxious, or maybe practicing the affirmations or sharing the gratitudes that you have found on that particular day. Maybe all of these little things together will will help her. But I think you're doing an amazing job just being as present in the journey as you are. You're doing so well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And let me have a look. We have another one from Lucy. It's not really a question, but let's have a look. This is really helpful. Just wish I had these tips a few weeks ago, whilst I had the dreaded 2-week wait. Unfortunately, it did not work for me, but having these tips will help me on my next cycle to relax and not focus on symptoms that I think I should be experiencing.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy. And I really hope it helps you next time. And good luck with everything. I'm sure you'll do amazing. Now that you have these strategies, it will be a bit easier.
Exactly. All right. Best of luck, Lucy. All right. Let me have a look. From Doreen. Oh, do you think a productive distraction or throwing yourself into work could work? Will it work for everyone?
So there is not one strategy that will work for everyone. Everyone's different. So you just have to think what would help you. So I know some people prefer to just do work, and work for them might be something that is really enjoyable and something that is really relaxing. But other people might find that working is a really stressful environment. So it will depend on what works for you. During this 2-week wait, particularly this time in the journey, I would say focus on doing something that gives you a sense of pleasure. And if work gives you that sense of pleasure, then yes, definitely. Or if you find pleasure in different things, then just put yourself first. Good luck, Doreen.
All right. Thank you. And let me have a look. For Michelle, we have another one. The negative thoughts chart, a great idea. Thank you. I find going on walks and to the cinema with my boyfriend really helps me on the 2-week wait. Walks in nature makes us feel good and we can talk to each other about our feelings. Cinema is an escape and distraction, so we don't have to think and talk about the 2-week waits.
Yes, that's exactly the experience I have as well. And from speaking with my clients and other patients, that's the experience I have doing those things that manage your thoughts, that chart, and to doing all these other things that keep you busy and give you pleasure at the same time. It's a great way of being distracted and at the same time connecting with your own well-being and potentially connecting with your partner.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. And let's see, we have another one, Anne-Marie. I had 3-day embryo transfer last Friday. I then caught my husband's flu, cough, chest infection, fever on Friday. If I think I may have had an infection from the catheter, as had stabbing pains for 2 days, which have stopped now. Will the illness have affected the transfer? I have no symptoms, but it is early.
Yeah, so it might not affect the transfer. So, like I said, there is no way of absolutely knowing. From my experience, we can have everything right and still not have a positive 2-week wait. And sometimes we've been to work and we've drank wine and we've done all the things that we supposedly shouldn't do, or we've been unwell like you, and it's still positive. So I would say don't lose hope. So it might be that it's still positive. I hope you do get better, Anne-Marie, and keep us posted. We'll be rooting for you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And okay, let me check next one. To reassure Michelle, who had 4 failed implantations, do not lose heart. Be positive, and you can try autologous stem cells, which we have been using with very good outcome. Thank you.
So this is the doctor. Very good, Michelle. Good advice.
Yes. Perfect. Just wanted everyone to see this.
Yes.
All right. All right. There's another question from Amanda. What environmental factors would you say can damage implantation?
So I wouldn't say there is one factor alone, because sometimes, well, there is many factors that can affect implantation. Implantation, oops, let me just see that my screen. So implantation might be because of a problem with the embryo itself, or it might be due to the uterus lining. We don't know. So there's lots of things that can affect implantation. When we talk about environmental factors, we talk about, for example, reducing the amount of plastic that we have around us in our life. So it might be food that we eat that comes in plastic containers, or it might be Tupperwares at home, that sort of thing. We also talk about smoking in environments that might affect egg quality or sperm quality. It might be being when a man has the computer on their laptop. So a lot of environmental factors that can affect the quality of eggs and sperm and can ultimately affect implantation. So we will never know what exactly might have caused that implantation to fail, but there's a lot of things that we can do preventively to actually have more chances of making it be successful.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted everyone to take a look at this as well. So we have more fans, I guess.
Brilliant.
Just wanted to see you all. All right.
He's getting support. Positive fact.
If it's not a problem with egg, what's the other common reason for failed implantation?
It might be a problem with the sperm itself. It might be a problem with the uterus lining. And actually, last year, there was a unit in the south of Portugal that found that there was a special enzyme that would also affect implantation. And that was something that we didn't know until then. So I think there's so many things about conception that the medical community is still not aware of. And even if we try to control every aspect, then we still don't have all the answers. But what we know is if we have good quality egg and a good quality sperm, and if together they turn out to be a good quality embryo and the uterus lining is at that thickness that is good enough, then there is more chances of implantation happening. That's all we know.
All right. Thank you for this one as well. And let me see. We have another question from Emma. Hi, my husband and I are in the 2-week wait with our surrogate with donor eggs after IVF failure with our own eggs and 3 implantation failures with donor eggs. Can you give me some advice on how to distress wisely wait for use?
Yes. So I think we've covered so many strategies today. It's good that you are here to begin with, and it's good that you've listened to these strategies today. Again, I would say start by keeping yourself busy with activities that give you that sense of pleasure or sense of accomplishment. Try to maybe look for these videos on YouTube where you can look for the body scan, mindfulness, or breathing exercises really tend to help. Writing things down, journaling, thinking about things you are grateful for during your journey. And if you happen to have any negative thoughts that might be coming into your mind, maybe because you've had already these failures, maybe you might be thinking it's not going to happen. Then again, do that that table that I've spoken about. So complete the table, and that will guaranteed help you reduce your anxiety and your stress levels. Good luck, Emma.
Thank you, Emma. Also, good luck. Okay, fingers crossed. All right, let me see. We have another one from Adriana this time. I'm doing my first implantation in March. This is the first time we are doing IVF. I work as a dog groomer. Do you think it will be best for me to have time off during the 2 weeks wait?
You can take time off if you prefer, or you can go to work if you prefer as well. So it's not something that is contraindicated. Things that would be contraindicated after the embryo transfer would be things like if you going into a sauna, or if you happen to work in a swimming pool. So those things would be contraindicated. But apart from that, being a dog groomer, you don't have to quit to stop your job during those 2 weeks. Again, think about, is it something that you enjoy doing? Is it something that would give you pleasure and at the same time keep you busy? Then by all means continue doing it. It wouldn't be a problem.
Perfect. Thank you as well. And let me have a look. Andrea, I am glad you have stressed that during this 2 week periods, women need lots of support. We have a polyclinic, and there is a spa and massage place where women can go and spend time daily. This helps. One of our fertility nurses has done masters in psychology, who's available 24/7. This is so helpful. You are doing excellent work. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. I think it's amazing to see clinics that are providing this support. And I think more and more patients will be looking precisely for clinics that are providing this holistic approach, because we want more than a doctor who looks at egg and the sperm and puts it together. We want to have the whole experience. So amazing that there is a clinic who is providing all these support strategies.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, and let's see. We have question from Ratu. I like to do some sports and drink 1 cup of cappuccino. Can I do these during the 2 week wait?
Okay, so sports that you wouldn't be able to do is anything that is high intensity training. So I would say don't run a marathon, don't do HIIT training, but light sports, going for a walk, that sort of thing, yes, you can carry on doing, but don't do water sports or anything that is too intense. In terms of caffeine, caffeine like in a cappuccino, would you consider maybe decaf, or does it have to be cappuccino? But again, I can't. We usually say to minimize the amount of caffeine we have during the fertility journey, but there's no proof that removing it altogether will be a guarantee. So again, if drinking 1 cappuccino will help you cope with the 2 week wait, then yeah, you can have that cappuccino. And I hope you enjoy it and have lots of pleasure having that cappuccino.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And let's see. For Michelle, thank you so much for your ideas and positivity today from myself and Damien, and we are proud of you for being this journey and turning it into positive and for helping others.
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. We are always happy to see such comments for sure. All right, let's have a look at Sandra. She has another question. Is it okay to drink some wine at the dinner or a cocktail during the 2 week wait? I wonder, because natural pregnancy we would not known yet that we are pregnant and would live our life normally.
Exactly. So what I can tell you is that as healthcare professionals, if it's a planned pregnancy, we would advise the woman to start taking some supplements, and we would tell them to avoid drinking alcohol if it's a planned pregnancy. But lots of people end up pregnant and they haven't planned it, and they have had alcohol, and the pregnancy still happens and the babies are healthy. So it has to do with moderation. If you feel that you want to have wine or a cocktail during the 2-week wait, you can have it. If that helps you, then, or if you absolutely have to have it, then by all means have it. But what we know is there is a link between alcohol and some abnormalities in babies. So if you are able to avoid alcohol, that would be best. But if you want to have it, then by all means have it. Like you said, there's people who end up pregnant and they do have alcohol in their lives. So we can't guarantee that it was that glass of wine that made me have a negative pregnancy test. We will never be sure. And there's lots of people who are able to just, I'm going to go through this 2-week wait and I'm going to relax and I'm going to live life as normal. And then, you know what? It turns out that after the 2-week wait, the test is positive. So yeah, if you want to have that wine at dinner, if you feel that it helps you during the 2-week wait, then yeah, by all means.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And let's see, we have another question from Ratsu. Some people advise me to go gluten-free diet during the 2-week wait. Can it help?
Yeah, I mean, do you have a gluten-free, are you allergic to gluten? So that would be the only reason when we would think about going gluten-free during the 2-week wait, or in any other time of the journey of our lives. So if you are gluten-free, yes, don't eat gluten. But if you're not, there's actually evidence that removing gluten completely from your diet can be unhelpful. So I would say you don't have to put yourself on a gluten-free diet unless you absolutely have to for your own health.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, we have another question from Tanya. We will be slowly finishing, so if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them in. Okay? And from Tanya, what are my chances of success in terms of probability of it going well?
That's a very good question, but it changes every time. So it depends on your own circumstances. It depends on your own health. It depends on the quality of your embryo. I can talk about general IVF. In the first cycle, it is around 20% chances of getting pregnant. Okay? When you reach a third cycle, the chances are around 50% cumulative chances. So we can tell you that once you've reached cycle number 3, you have more chances of a positive pregnancy test as compared to the first. But again, there's lots of things playing here. So things that can affect pregnancy test are things like smoking, extreme exercise, or not moving enough, are things like there's a certain BMI range. So being too overweight or too underweight can be unhelpful. So those things can affect your success with IVF, but usually it tends to be 20% for the general population, 20%, and then around 50% cumulative chances around the third cycle.
Okay, thank you. And let's see. Would you recommend any other blog or Instagram to follow to stay really focused on being positive?
There's lots of people that are really good on Instagram. So I'll just go here on my Instagram and I can tell you a few that I follow. For example, there is here, there's a podcast called Big Fat Negative Podcast. Don't be put off by the title. They are 2 girls. They're amazing in what they're doing. And they are really positive and they do a lot of podcasts. There's also a podcast called by the Fertility Podcast. Is also an amazing person to follow. The Fertility Network UK On Instagram, it's also an amazing one to follow. But there's lots of people to follow. If you search for fertility support or TTC, hashtag TTC or hashtag fertility support on Instagram, you'll see lots of people with these positive messages.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that as well. All right, let me see. All right, we don't have a question, but I think you should see it. Thank you, Andrea. Keep up your good work. I enjoyed listening to you. Keep all women happy.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for asking all these questions.
Yep, thank you. And let me see. We have like 2 questions left.
Okay.
So let's go ahead. I think we shouldn't change our lifestyle too much during 2-week wait. Of course, no smoking, no alcohol. It might be too stressful for me. The embryo transfer has happened, and I think we should focus on our emotions and well-being. What's your opinion?
100%. And you know what? Sometimes I've seen people who think I have to do acupuncture or I have to do this, I have to do that. And it turns out that the 2-week wait ends up being more stressful than any other time of the journey because of all these have to do's. So that's why I emphasize so much. Do things that give you a sense of pleasure. What are the things that you would actually enjoy doing, and don't do something just because you have to. Yes, 100% Doreen, focus on your emotions and on your own well-being. There's nothing that you're going to do regarding your lifestyle during those 2-week waits specifically that is going to make a difference. I would say lifestyle and environmental factors matter more about the quality of the eggs and sperm. So it's about the 3 months before egg collection or the 3 months before sperm collection. That's how long it takes for the sperm or the egg to actually have more quality or poor quality. So lifestyle and environmental factors matter more during that period than in the 2-week wait. But of course, like you said, smoking, alcohol, extreme exercise, no bathtubs or anything like that. Those are things that, of course, your doctor will tell you about as well, but 100% focusing on your well-being.
Yep, perfect. Thank you for the question and your answer and help, of course, Andrea. Okay, let me see. We have another one from Sandra. Thank you. I was just wondering if the embryo at the very early stage is somehow protected from the impact of alcohol. Of course, just a little quantity, like a glass of wine. I also heard red wine is good for the endometrium before the transfer.
Yeah, so I think historically there was this idea that red wine was good, even for circulation, and that turns out not to be truth. That was something that in the old days doctors used to say, but research shows that that is actually not true, because alcohol is associated with a lot of consequences that when compared with the benefits are just not worth it. Alcohol is the number 1 reason for cancer, so it's definitely not worth it. And there's other things that we can do to improve circulation and therefore irrigation or blood supply to the endometrium, as opposed to having a glass of red wine. Like I said, we usually advise people who are trying to conceive to avoid alcohol because it has bad effects on the embryo. But again, if not drinking will give you more stress, it will give you more trouble, and it will prevent you from being well during the 2-week wait, then of course you can choose to have it. And lots of people who have had wine ended up being okay during the 2-week wait and having a positive pregnancy test. What we know is that or what we have to advise is that there is no amount of alcohol that is actually beneficial.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I believe we'll have the last question for today. It's from Frank. what are the main options if the 2-week wait doesn't turn out to be the result we wanted?
Yeah, so Frank is my partner, but he must be joining us from another computer. Thank you for the question, Frank. So if the 2-week wait doesn't turn out to be the result we wanted, the key thing here is to have an appointment with your doctor and explore the reasons why maybe it was successful, and start to consider what can you do differently in the plan so you can have a different result next time. I usually say if the plan isn't working, we need to adjust the plan. We need to think about doing something different. So if this doesn't work, don't be disheartened. Understand that maybe the second cycle or the third cycle will be the one that gives you your chances. And all you know now is that this one hasn't worked. It doesn't mean that the other one won't work. And exploring the options with your doctor, learning about things around lifestyle or environmental factors or managing emotions that you can maybe do different might prepare you for a different result next time.
All right. Thank you. There is one more thing I'd like you to see from Doreen. Maybe just a suggestion, I guess. Maybe a webinar on coping with big fat negative. It would be great,
Yeah.
I think. This is the most difficult moments.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we need to plan that, Caroline.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Frank is saying also that this was an excellent suggestion for a webinar. So I am glad to hear that. We'll think about that for sure. I guess we will be finishing. So I'd like to thank all of you for your questions, for being here for sure, and for Andrea for being here for us as well, for helping us, for the tips. And this is really, really good. I am really happy to have you here today for sure.
Thank you everyone for being here and for asking all these questions. And feel free to get in touch anytime on any social media.
Sure. And of course, if you have any other questions, don't forget you can definitely get back to us. You can email us via patient@eggdonationfriends.com, and we can also forward all your questions to Andrea. So it's really up to you. We are always happy to help you and forward any questions to Andrea as well. Okay. Again, thank you all. Andrea, is there anything else you would like to add?
Thank you once again, everyone. And
Yep,
good luck.
it was really nice to have you. Exactly, everyone. Best of luck, okay? And I hope to see you all next week during our next webinar, same time. So again, thank you. Have a good night. All. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.